What's up, everybody? My name is Tony Lopez with Alternative Living Spaces, and this episode is part 2 of framing, where we're going to be discussing one of the most unique ways to frame a shipping container that's going to maximize your interior space. So when it comes to framing, there's a few different options to select from. You can go with wood studs like we have on the inside here. You can go with metal studs, or you can go with InsoFast. Now, I want to kind of share some of the pros and cons of each before I break down what we have done here. First off is metal studs. Now, metal studs is a great option. I'm a big fan of them. What I will say is that you do want to take into consideration what kind of finish walls you're going to be doing. For example, in our unit, these walls are going to all be shiplapped. That means we want to use brad nails through the shiplap and into a wood stud. With a metal stud, the installation of a shiplap is going to be a little bit more difficult, and you're going to start to see holes where we had to actually screw the shiplap in. It's for that reason that we've gone with wood. But if you're going to be doing drywall, metal studs can be a great option. They're lightweight, they're cost effective. You're never going to have moisture issues with them because they're completely moisture resistant. And with a drywall type of a stud, you can easily attach the drywall to it. So I am a fan of metal studs. Now, there is another product called InsoFast. It's basically a pre-made foam panel designed specifically for containers, and it has studs already built in, which basically are these small plastic furring tips all the way throughout. Now, InsoFast is a good option if it's your first time building something. If you have no construction experience and you want something that's a little bit more simple to do. You don't want to have to think through framing and installation and all these different steps. InsoFast is kind of an all-in-one option. Now, in my opinion, it can get the job done. And if you're just doing something like an office, it could be a good application. But if you're doing a home, and especially if you're doing a permanent home, going with something like wood or metal studs will be better. Now, when it comes to wood studs, there are a few different options in terms of sizing, right? Most traditional construction, you're gonna see the use of 2x4 or 2x6 studs. And in container construction, more often than not, it's gonna be 2x4s. And when you're doing your 2x4 stud layout, you're framing it out just like you would any traditional wall. However, in this unit, it's very special, and I wanna show you what we did. We used wood studs, but instead of going vertically against the container wall, we've gone horizontally. So you can see right here, all of these studs are laid horizontal and flat against the container. Now, these are actually just 2x3 studs. We didn't need 2x4s since we were doing it in this direction. And instead of sticking out 3.5 inches, by doing what we've done, it's only sticking out 1.5 inches. Now, what that means is that we're saving an additional 4 inches on our interior width. Now, that's actually a big deal, especially with a container home. Typically, the inside of a container is about 83 inches. So by doing that, we're getting closer to 87 inches, increasing your width probably about 6%. So in the big picture, it allows you to do a lot of new things. For example, we have some units where we were gonna put a bed in the back of the unit, and basically we didn't have room for nightstands on each side or walkways on each side. By adding the additional 4 inches, it now is giving us enough room. So you can see here what we did end up doing though, in order to attach this flat to the container wall, we added this 1-inch flat stock metal. So this metal got welded on at 3 different points, top, middle, and bottom. And then our studs are getting screwed in with wood to metal self-tappers at these 3 points. In addition to this, it's gonna get spray foam insulation, and these studs are not gonna go anywhere. Now for the ceiling in here, we went with 2x6 studs. Part of the reason is we're doing additional insulation in the ceiling and needed a little bit of extra space. If you don't need that, you could have gone with 2x4s. Now, just to point out a few things here, right here we did put some backing. We're gonna be installing a floating tabletop desk that comes off of this wall. So adding backing is really important. It's gonna be something that you wanna consider during your build process. Maybe you need it behind a TV, maybe you need it behind upper cabinetry. Now, coming down this direction, there's something unique I wanna show you. This is gonna be the bathroom right here. And this entire bathroom is framed out flat ways, just like the walls were framed out. And the purpose of that was to maximize the interior space of the bathroom and the hallway. So you can see here the 2x3 studs were put sideways. The bottom plate was cut down and put sideways, as well as the top plate up here. So it's given us a little bit of extra space in the bathroom and in this living area. And it wasn't something that we're used to doing. We don't normally do walls like this. And this is going to an area with lower regulations. So there are certain things that you may not be able to do in other locations. So just be aware of that. Your architect will help you navigate all of that. But that is how we were able to do it in this application. Now, back here, we have our bedroom space. And we did want to make this wall a little bit thicker. So we framed it out traditionally. And the reasoning is all of these wires are coming down right here and gonna exit out to the panel on the exterior. And we needed that extra space just to get those wires to properly run. Now, a couple challenges in doing framing this way that we've come across. Number one is HVAC units ideally should be mounted on a back wall with the condenser on the back as well, so you can easily pass your lines through. If you plan to install your HVAC on a side wall, which we do plan to do in the living room, you don't have a lot of depth here. So it makes it more challenging to run the copper lines if you're doing something like a mini split through the ceiling, down the wall, and then to exit out for your HVAC. So it can be done, but it may not be a DIY project anymore, and you may need to get a professional to come in and help you. Another challenge with doing the flat framing on the walls is your electrical. So I'm gonna show you something right here. This is a shallow box, electrical box. Now, traditionally, our box's depth is about twice that amount. But because these walls are so thin, we really only have 1.5 inches of space to work with. So we're stuck doing something like that. You also need to be careful with how you're gonna run your wiring. Now, in this area, it's not finished out, but I wanna show you something over here. So traditionally, when you're doing your wiring, your stud's gonna be 3.5 inches. So you're gonna have room to attach your wires and have them back far enough where a nail isn't gonna puncture them or anything like that. With our studs like this, that does become one of the challenges. So the electricians have added this just to try to space those wires back so that when the guys are installing their shiplap, there isn't an error of someone shooting something in, a nail in, hits a knot and shoots off to the right to hit a wire. So you also are gonna need to navigate how you run these wires up into your ceiling. So we're trying to run them right behind the studs, and then it just transitions right into the ceiling and all the way back to the main breaker box. And let me show you one more thing on this side. Basically right here, it becomes another challenge. This wall is only a 2x3 wall. And so we have to find a way now to protect these hot and cold water lines and this electrical line in the event that by user error, someone purchases this and in 5 years, they want to start screwing in shelves up here. The last thing we want them to do is hit a water line. Now in traditional construction, your wood framing typically is your structural. However, in container construction, your structural more often than not is going to be your container and your structural steel reinforcements. Because of that, when it comes to doing some of the framing elements, it will vary by your architectural designs and your permitting requirements. But in this application, it was lower regulation. So these are ultimately functioning as furring strips for us. They're furring out the walls, giving us room for insulation, and they're allowing us to now have a tacker for our shiplap. For that reason, we just literally for the headers, screwed these with wood to metal self-tappers right into the steel tube that is our actual structural member. We did that for the entire perimeter of the window. And what this is gonna allow us to do is now finish it out clean with our shiplap. We'll run our shiplap right up to the window, right up to below the window and above the window. And it's gonna give us the opportunity to make everything look nice and clean and always have something to attach to. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video as we broke down framing, especially how we're doing this unique container build. If you enjoy container construction, maybe you're a DIYer and you wanna build out your own shipping container home, I have a free training for you. I put it together specifically updated for this year. You're not gonna wanna miss it. You can get more information on that in the description below.